We open the ideaHUB Innovators podcast with Dr. Richard N. Hayes, Executive Director of Hofstra University's Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and an Associate Professor of Management and Entrepreneurship at the Frank G. Zarb School for Business. Dr. Hayes has transformed Hofstra's entrepreneurship program through impactful initiatives like the Ascend Long Island program, the Hofstra Digital Remedy Venture Challenge, and the Scott Skodneck Business Development Center. With global teaching experience and accolades in entrepreneurship, Dr. Hayes is a true leader in fostering learning, research, and venture growth in business. Join us as we discuss the Institute's pivotal role in transforming Long Island's entrepreneurial ecosystem. Good morning, Dr. Hayes.
Good morning, Dr. Vickerie. How are you?
It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast this morning. Our first guest, introducing our purpose here, what we hope to do with the podcast, and then also talking about your impact and the work of the Institute. And so let's jump in.
Okay.
Tell us about yourself. How did you get into this work? What's your background? And then we'll talk more about the actual program.
Sure. I was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, so go Hornets, go Panthers, all of those things. A little bit of personal background, I guess, that might help explain how I arrived here. I did a pre-college program when I was in high school. It was at Davidson College, small liberal arts college, elite liberal arts college. And so we would go, we would spend every July, and we would be trained on a variety of different topics to help us get prepared, not just for the next year of high school, but for college and beyond. At the end of one of the years, all of the mentors, we call them counselor mentors, but they would all give us a name, a nickname that they thought kind of reflected the qualities we exhibited during that summer. I was given the nickname of A. Philip Randolph. And a lot of folks were like, well, who's A. Philip Randolph and why is that important? But it became an instant source of pride for me. So A. Philip Randolph, for our listeners who may not know his story, was a labor organizer. And he came together and he was really a pioneer, an innovator in fighting for economic justice. We often know about the March on Washington, and everyone knows Dr. King, and they minimize Dr. King to like one or two lines, the notion of I have a dream. But the full name of that march that often seemingly has gotten truncated is that it was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. So that was the whole point. The whole point was organizing, coming together for economic empowerment, because absent those jobs, it was really hard to have true freedom. And so I still believe, and that guides the way I think about the work that we do at the Institute, is justice work. It's work by saying entrepreneurship is a vehicle for empowerment. It's a vehicle for generational wealth. It's a vehicle for trying to dismantle systems. And so at the essence, what we do is we train people to start, grow, scale their businesses, but we see that it as having a slightly higher purpose. We see entrepreneurship as a transformative tool, not just for the entrepreneur, but for the community in which that entrepreneur resides. And so I guess at the essence, that's what we do. And so we have a lot of different programs that we'll go through the programs, I guess, during this conversation. But we're here to empower people, and we're here to use entrepreneurship as a tool for justice.
Awesome. So the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship has been a host of the Ascend Long Island program, right? And so we'll jump in by first talking about that program and its impact to bringing more jobs, to expanding opportunities for our local business owners.
Sure. So Ascend is funded by J.P. Morgan Chase, from the philanthropic unit, and it's designed to help grow entrepreneurs from underserviced communities, specifically targeting entrepreneurs of color. What J.P. Morgan, in partnership with the University of Washington, was able to see through their research is that there are these areas where these entrepreneurs operate with some deficits. And that led to what they refer to as the 3M model or the M-cube model. And what it says is that these entrepreneurs often are undercapitalized. Every entrepreneur that we've ever worked with says they need more money. So almost all entrepreneurs to some degree are undercapitalized. But it's really highlighted for entrepreneurs from these particular communities. So that's what they refer to as the money piece. Entrepreneurs of color often find themselves where they don't have access to broader contracts for whatever reason, be it for their size or they lack the networks to get into some of these conversations. They don't have access to some of the game-changing, transformative contracts and opportunities. So they refer to that as a deficiency with access to markets. Then they tend to be undertrained, formally trained in some of the areas in which they operate. And so that's referred to as kind of the deficits with respect to management. And increasingly, there's a fourth M that we're talking a lot more about, this notion of an entrepreneurial mindset. So what Ascend is designed to do is to really help shore up those gaps in money, in markets, in management, and to really help those entrepreneurs explore, deepen their entrepreneurial mindset. So that's the work we've been doing. We've had multiple cohorts. So I'm really excited that our listeners are going to get to meet our companies and hear their stories, which is much better, much more entertaining than my story, and hear about the jobs that they are creating, the impact they're having on their communities. And really, to be perfectly honest, to learn about their products and services. I want our listeners to come away with saying, oh yeah, I was looking for a contractor in this particular area. I heard the podcast, I was exposed to this company, and I can't wait to give them a call to see if they can come do some work for me. So that's what I hope is the goal, that our listeners will learn about fascinating entrepreneurs, but learn about great high quality companies that, if given the opportunities, can consistently deliver.
That's wonderful. And as I have been talking with the entrepreneurs and the work that we've both done within the program in helping to bring out the stories of the entrepreneurs and helping them to understand how to pitch, how to pursue different types of contracts, especially procurement contracts, learning all of the things they have learned and the ways that they have become experts in their fields, I know will also transform for listeners who are trying to do similarly, who are trying to enter similar industries, who are trying to expand their markets and climb the walls that our entrepreneurs have been able to climb. So my hope with the podcast is that we will shorten the distance that some of our local businesses have to run just to be able to make it through the next hurdle, because there's so much to learn from the entrepreneurs who have already been there, done that. And so there's so many tips that are going to come out of the conversations that we'll be having with 30 plus entrepreneurs. So I'm really looking forward to that part of the conversation. Going back to Ascend Long Island, there was something special about our little chapter of Ascend Long Island, of the National Ascend program. Can you get into that piece of it?
Sure. I think there's been an excellent and growing cohort effect among the Ascend Long Island companies. Long Island is, every community is unique, but Long Island has some fascinating challenges. And what I believe we're able to see through our companies, one is their ability to support each other. And I'm getting increasingly excited about that. They know, and we know, right, that it's hard to get contract opportunities in the main. What we've seen from this last cohort is cohort companies actually giving each other contracts and being willing to work with each other, coming together to bid jointly on opportunities, being willing to kind of share best practices. Again, I think all areas of the country, unfortunately, create these issues for particular communities. But what we've done with our Ascend is really say we're going to come together. Companies are going to support each other, not just by saying we're a shoulder for you to lean on in hard times. And that actually is important. That gets into the notion of mindset. But we're going to provide opportunities for each other. I also feel like, and I want to brag a little bit, we've been, I think, somewhat cutting edge on this notion of mindset. We've brought in resources to really help train our entrepreneurs about how to navigate that aspect of it, how to have resiliency, how to be able to recognize that you're going to apply for X amount of contracts and you may only get a conversation on one, and you may not even land that contract. But we've had people in place to help our folk really understand their journey. And I think that's something that we take particular pride in, is that we have tried to be as holistic as possible in how we've designed the Ascend program. There's one goal. It is all about generating contracts, but we want to make sure we're also helping our companies have every resource they possibly can have to not only secure but to execute, so that they position themselves for not just the first contract, but the 10th contract, the 100th contract, and so on and so forth.
That's wonderful. Now, what are the standout examples? What are some of the successes of the Ascend program that come to mind for you?
So I think one of our earliest stars is Marie St. Cyr, who I believe our listeners will learn about her. It's fascinating. She came to us when she was really kind of just starting to grow her business, starting to grow her concept. We can't take full credit. We'll take as much credit as we can. But she's grown to the point of where not only has she grown her business, but she's now actually in the training journey herself. So she's designed her own Ascend-ish type training program to help people follow her story. She does a lot of significant contract work with the Department of Education. And she's been hired to do a how-to. How can you also gain contracts? How can you also kind of follow the lead in which, I've established? So that's a fascinating story. And about this notion of being holistic, right? So she's gone from getting started with us to having amazing success to now saying, I want to reinvest in other entrepreneurs because I want them to also have success. And so the notion of actually the transformation that we've seen in her as a businesswoman, but also the person that she's becoming and emerging as, the leader she's emerging as. That's really, really exciting.
Awesome. Why is it so challenging for businesses to rise up and become more like this star of Marie St. Cyr? Why is it so hard? What makes it so hard for them to get to that point?
Yeah, you have to have opportunities first, right? And in many opportunities, like anything, a lot of those can come from established networks. And if you're not in those networks, it's sometimes hard just to get to the table, just to be able to sit and talk with someone as we're having this type of conversation. Mm-hmm. There's also issues of size, which isn't just for our companies, for all small companies, this whole notion of kind of liability of newness, but it is deeply entrenched for these companies from these communities. And so the opportunities are out there, but do they have the resources to take on the insurance that's required? Right? Do they have the resources to be properly bonded? Do they have a lot of the resources that come with size? But how do you get to size? How do you get to scale if you can't secure those first significant contracts? So it can become a bit of a vicious cycle, right? But again, what we're trying to do is build those relationships. What we hope is going to emerge or continues to emerge from Ascend is that we deepen our relationship with our anchor partners. Anchor companies are established companies, larger companies that have significant opportunities. And we're hoping that through Ascend, through our anchor partner council, that they are going to be kind of the intermediaries to help those companies get those opportunities, or be a connector to where maybe we're not large enough, maybe a company's not large enough to fulfill a Northwell contract. But Northwell or whomever, pick any of our anchors, can say, but look, we'll connect you with some of our subs so that you can be a subcontractor. We'll invest in you. We understand your capacity issues, but we'll put you in places to where you can succeed and where you can grow.
What are some of the innovative ways that anchor partners have been opening more doors to help our smaller businesses get their foot in the door and be able to take on more contracts, be able to expand their capacity, be able to even learn how to get a procurement contract?
So what we've had in Ascend is that we've actually been able to get anchors to the table and walk them through the path. So our anchor partners throughout the years that we've run the Ascend program, they show up and they're conversing with our companies, and they're saying this is how you apply for this particular opportunity at this particular company. And they've made themselves available. Look, this is my direct email. This is my direct phone number. Reach out to me. So I think that's one of the strongest things that our companies can do is provide that personal interface, that you're not just applying to a generic email that may have been listed on a website, but you're actually applying to a decision maker within that organization. So I think that's been the key, and we hope that that will continue to be the key as we bring on new anchor partners, that they will have that deep commitment to actually serving as that gap eliminator or that bridge between our companies and the decision makers. Because we feel strong that our companies have the capacity as long as they're able to have the opportunity.
And so anchor partners are just one key piece of the larger ecosystem that creates the opportunities for these companies to expand, for them to do their work, to do and fulfill their main purpose, right? Talk about this larger ecosystem that we exist in. What are the key pieces that must come together in order to create a thriving, robust economy and to open up more doors for successful businesses to grow?
So I think, especially within the Ascend context, right? I think one of the other key pieces, because again, if you go back to the model, that M-Cube model, and you're looking at management, and you're looking at markets, and you're looking at money, right? So if you say that is kind of the ecosystem that you have to be concerned about, right? So I think one of the other significant players, and we have great partners in this journey, is access to capital, is helping the companies get the necessary resources that they need in order to execute on the contract. Now, we have a particular partner at our Ascend, so we work directly with Bot Capital and their leaders in this space. But if we're talking about the ecosystem broadly, that's when some of your CDFIs and some of the other financial institutions can play a key role. I think there also needs to be, again, back to this model that I think is a useful way to frame the conversation. And so we talk about markets and we need companies that are willing to provide access to contracts. And we talk about the notion that we need the money piece to be aggressively supported for those entrepreneurs. Then I guess that last piece is the management piece and the ability for our individual companies to get access to training, but to get access to kind of focused training that they need. There are a lot of programs. We think Ascend is a premier program, but there's actually no shortage of programs that an entrepreneur can be involved in. Is it the best training? Is it the training that is most directly aligned to whatever it is that they're doing? Because again, our workshops, or workshops like our workshops, are being increasingly provided, and some companies are actually starting to take some of this in-house and doing their own training. And that's what we need. We need our entrepreneurs to get the appropriate skills and the appropriate training to be able to grow their companies.
That's wonderful. All right, so let's talk about some of these other programs, right? The Institute is really working on expanding its reach and tapping into spaces where there's room for a support organization like the Institute to do something different in the local economy, to provide a service that really isn't there yet. So let's explore some more of the programs that the Institute is offering to help our entrepreneurs.
Sure. We want to meet you wherever you are on your entrepreneurial journey. And we want to have kind of a broad range of programs targeting a broad range of entrepreneurs. And we want to take an expansive perspective on what we define as entrepreneurship. For us, entrepreneurship does not have to be just your traditional, I'm going to start my business. We are also interested in one of the initiatives we recently rolled out. I guess it depends on when you watch this, but one of the initiatives we rolled out, let me give an actual date, that we started in August of 2024 is our Social Innovation Initiative. And that is targeting social entrepreneurs individuals who, again, want to use entrepreneurship as a tool for positive good, but it's also inviting individuals from nonprofit space, from civic organizations, from religious organizations, on how they can think entrepreneurially about executing the mission that they have and how they can bring to play some of the tools that we provide. Thinking about customer discovery, which may seem odd to think about if you're a nonprofit director, but ultimately you're all accounting to someone and you're all trying to raise resources to fulfill your mission. But let's go back. So we'll start back from, and I'll do it chronologically, looking at age of our clients. We run a high school program. We had a very successful pilot program called the Leadership, Entrepreneurship, and Innovation Program. We brought local high school kids to campus. We ran them through the normal tools that we use. They went through kind of the notion of developing a business model canvas. They were able to learn how to do a pitch. They pitched to each other. They were peers and judges for each other. It became a little contested among the students. But as a program that captured young, inspiring entrepreneurial minds while they're juniors in high school.
Yeah.
And again, those students may not end up being entrepreneurs as we think about it, but they'll learn how to think entrepreneurially.
Yeah, and so I worked in that program with you. I had the pleasure of teaching one of the workshops, introducing the business model canvas to them. Now, what is your hope by having a program at such a catching these students at such a young age before they get out there into the real world? What is your hope? What's the seed you're trying to plant there?
Yeah, think entrepreneurially. Think about, how do I solve problems? How do I build systems and build entities to solve problems? Am I able to think about marketing? And for some of these young people, how do I think about marketing myself? At a very early age, what is my value proposition, right? One of the key pedagogical tools that everyone is using these days is the business model canvas, right? And in the center of that canvas is the value proposition. What value do you bring to your customer base? I think that can be internalized, and you can start to think about, what's going to be my value proposition? What do I want to be really, really good at? How do I want to separate myself as I'm preparing my college application? How do I want to separate myself from the hundreds of other people who are applying to Hofstra? As I think about building my career, how do I want to generate value? And on the other side of that canvas, right, is this notion of relationships, customer relationships. How do you develop a deepening tie with your customers to where they consistently look at your brand and look at your brand exclusively? I want a young person to think about building relationships and what those relationships are going to look like, not merely for their own personal gain. So we're not training you to figure out who do you need to network with just so you can say, I can reach out to this person when I need something. But how do we build deep relationships that are mutually beneficial, right? So a lot of the tools that we use in LEAP, while they were designed to help them start a new business, they were given a concept, they had to come up with a pitch, they pitched their business, so on and so forth. Those are transferable skills that hopefully they'll take with them, whether or not they are the next unicorn, or if maybe they go and they become a physician, an engineer, whatever it is. They think entrepreneurially, they think about value, they think about relationships, they think about key partners. And so those are all transferable skills that hopefully these young people would take with them the rest of their journey.
Wonderful. So what's next for the Institute? What else are we doing?
Yeah, so we're continuing LEAP. LEAP will become a full 4-credit course with our partner high schools on the collegiate level, because Hofstra is a university, so maybe not lose sight of that. We're deepening the different programming that we have for our students. One of the things that I'm proud of developing is we have our International Entrepreneurial course, which you've led sessions. And in that course, right, students study an entrepreneurial ecosystem throughout the early part of our spring term. And then during our spring break, they go visit that country with a strong emphasis on community service learning, on being able to go out and provide the gifts and talents that our Hofstra students have globally. In the pilot program, we took the students to South Africa, and they were working with local entrepreneurs in Soweto to help them develop marketing campaigns, social media kits, they did benchmarking, so on and so forth. And so we're looking to continue that program. We're looking to not only offer that course once on a globally rotating basis, but we're looking to offer that course somewhat permanently as part of a Hofstra South Africa initiative. We have a very successful pitch competition. It's our Digital Remedy Challenge. We're looking to be able to continue that, so that provides more opportunities for our students to get in front of potential investors. We are working on, and I hope I can put this in a podcast. We may have to have you guys edit it at some point, but we're working on creating our own student VC. So our Dean Janet Linehan, is fundraising to allow our students to have the opportunity to be venture capitalists, where our students will go through the entire due diligence process to see what it really looks like to be a VC on the other side. And that supports a lot of the other programming we have. We have student managed investment funds. We have our students that are managing their own apparel store and ZARB gear store. So that notion of experiential learning for our students is just going to continue to grow. And then we're looking to build infrastructure for our faculty. We have faculty that are doing great cutting edge research, and it's going to be the role of the Institute to help bring some of that research to market. And so we're in the process now of putting together our entire technology transfer infrastructure, and it aligns perfectly with the rise of the university into a higher quality research institution. And so that means there's going to be more great innovation coming from our faculty, and it's going to be our job as an institute to get those innovations to the market, get them to the world, so that those can be transformative products and services that will have come from the laboratories at Hofstra. So from a community perspective, we're looking to grow. We have our social innovation initiative. We're going to start an anti-poverty program next year. It's part of a consortium called the Urban Business Poverty Initiative, and that is led by the University of Notre Dame, and it has partners all over the world. It's a 10-month program to help individuals who are living in or around, maybe below the poverty line, to again use entrepreneurship as a tool for empowerment. So we're really, really excited about our community programming, the programming we're providing for our students, the programming we're providing for our faculty, the programming we're providing for non-traditional quote-unquote entrepreneurial folk, nonprofits, social entrepreneurs, faith-based leaders. So we are really, really, really excited about all the different things we're going in the different directions, because we want to touch as many different entrepreneurial thinkers as possible.
Now, it's so great to be at a university, right? And we're biased because we're both professors at a university, right? And a lot of the resources, a lot of the work that we do is birthed from this wonderful space that we're in. How is Hofstra University uniquely positioned as an anchor institute to create impact in the local community?
Oh, sure. For now, the slogan we use, right, is that we are the pride of Long Island. I think we are situated as, and I have good friends and colleagues at all the universities around Nassau and Suffolk counties, but I think we are positioned as a key force. We're located in the village of Hempstead. We are positioned to where we can have impact, not just in Nassau, but I think our reach is throughout the island, as well as increasingly national and international. We are a comprehensive and growing and ambitious university. We've just in the last few years, we've launched our med school. We're transforming what used to be our health, now our School of Health Services. We have, at the time of this recording, so again, August 2024, we have a brand new, ambitious, and brilliant law school dean who's going to be taking our law school to new heights. And we're having increasing collaborations across those units. And so it's not just that Hofstra has top-notch law and medicine and health places, but on things like social innovation, we're coming together. On programs like helping empower disadvantaged communities, we not only have our law school clinic doing that work, but we're going to be doing poverty work in the institute, and there's going to be all types of synergies for us to work together and think through those things. So I think the rapid rise in great academic programming, our institute, our partners at the National Center for Suburban Studies, who are doing things significantly outside of campus. I think those things allow us to be strategically and uniquely positioned. Again, not just on Long Island, but that's our home, and we want to start at home, but internationally and globally as well.
No, that's awesome. So we talked about what we can do at the university level. We talked about what our anchor partners could do within their organizations to open up opportunities to more entrepreneurs. We've also tapped into what you're doing in the local community. Now let's get to policy, because there's just some things that need to be set at a higher level to lead the way, right? And you and I have done some research around policy and how policy can have an impact, especially on entrepreneurs that are below the poverty line and trying to rise above it. So what kinds of policy would be helpful, transformative in these spaces?
Sure. So it depends on the group we're talking to, right? So if we're talking about our urban poverty entrepreneurs, right, then they need to have access, especially if, let's say, you're a single parent and you're trying to figure out how you're going to balance your entrepreneurial aspirations, but you also just need to be able to have food on the table, right? So there needs to be conversation about what does it mean to have living wages, but it also needs to be conversations about how is there affordable child care and other things that I may need to empower or free me to try to go out and grow my business. There needs to be access to capital, and what that looks like, maybe that's in the form of grants that can be used to provide seed capital. Maybe that's in the form of extremely low interest loans where there are entities that are willing to expand beyond the principal ways in which a client is assessed for their borrowing capacity. Are there programs, are there financial entities that are willing to say, okay, we recognize that you don't have an 800 credit score, but we want to put systems and structures in place to allow you to still have access to capital so you can at least start, let alone grow your business. For some of our more established businesses, there needs to be kind of the spirit of some of these programs, so MWBE programs, so on and so forth. There needs to be accountability and make sure that the companies that those programs are supposed to be empowering, those are really the companies that are getting those opportunities. And that if we say we've allocated X for MWBEs, it actually really gets to those particular MWBEs. So it's great to have these commitments, but these commitments really do need to be fulfilled. And then there needs to be more resources provided for those of us who are intermediaries to help those companies. So to help, we do work to try to help get companies certified, and we do work to try to partner with entities so that they're able to take advantage of some of the existing resources provided by the state. There needs to be, in my opinion, there needs to be more of those initiatives, and there needs to be truly that if it's designed for MWBEs, it's actually getting to MWBEs. And so I think that's critical. There always can be opportunities to make the journey more efficient for the entrepreneur, that you don't have to go through 8 different agencies or go through 8 different layers of administrative work just to register your business or just to get whatever you need to be eligible. I know there's a lot of conversations about trying to streamline certifications, and that, there's all these different certifications, there are all these different application processes. Is there a way to make that much more efficient? That takes time and energy, and our entrepreneurs, especially some of our small entrepreneurs, they need every minute they can get to pound the pavement to find jobs. So if the processes for them to be certified, to have access to some of these opportunities can be more efficient, that's only going to be able to grow their capacity. So we need to make sure that the programs that have been designed and put in place, that those programs are actually truly getting to the people. We need to make sure that there are additional opportunities for those who are at the kind of what we refer to as kind of our companies that are underserved, that there's truly ways that they can get not only the capital, but also some other support services. And so I would say those are probably, we talked about this a lot, some of the key policy things to think about. Ease of entry into some of these structures, truly allowing some of the set-asides to actually get to the communities that they were targeted for. Opportunities to help those who are the most disadvantaged just to get a footing to try to build from. And things that are in place, such as, childcare and other things that they need in order to be able to have some of the time available to kind of really ramp their business up.
In some of my research with local entrepreneurs, small businesses across different communities who are trying to expand, who are trying to get their foot in the door to earn more procurement contracts, one thing that I learned that is needed is intention and spirit, right? So it's great if we can have these policies. It's great that we might have structured programs, but we all know that when you're learning and you're expanding and you're trying to approach a new market, you're trying to stretch your resources and learn a process that you haven't been a part of first, there's a certain grace and flexibility that's needed in that learning phase. And on the organizations, a larger anchor institution side of things, it's often hard when you're talking about business and you're talking about controlling profit, controlling losses, paying attention to your resources and how those expenditures are made. It's often hard to allow that grace for mistakes to be made, right? It's all a part of a learning process. And here's why I say it this way. In talking with some of the entrepreneurs, right, there's an acknowledgement that some of the best mentors that they have given them the opportunity to learn under them. And that meant the mentor understood there might be a mistake that the mentor could correct in the process of learning, right? So how do we find more spaces where our entrepreneurs, these up-and-coming entrepreneurs, can be afforded that kind of grace, be afforded that kind of flexibility, right? How do we, as we are crafting these relationships with anchor institutions and trying to develop these pipelines and pathways for entrepreneurs to get access to more opportunities, how do we also craft the mentality and the spirit that our entrepreneurs need to be approached with?
Yeah, that's a challenging question. I think part of what the Institute, Hofstra, can do is to really be a cheerleader for understanding the deeper commitments that companies say that they make. Right, it's one thing to talk about impact we have on our community on your CSR page, if you have a CSR page. Is one thing to say we're going to set up this separate foundation and they're going to do all of this particular engagement. I think part of what we can try to champion for is the notion that there truly are commitments that do extend beyond P&L, and that if we bring up and if we advance our local small entrepreneurial ventures, that ultimately helps everybody. And you may not be able to see that directly when you look at your own particular financial, but if you can improve and you can make the community more thriving, if you can bring in a more diverse set of customers, then that's ultimately going to be good for everyone's business. We have colleagues, we have friends, we have scholars that have looked at issues related to diversity, right? And how more diverse organizations are better for everyone. And so if we can get our partners to really say that, look, we understand that it may not be the smoothest path. It may not be the most efficient path, but planting these seeds, making these long-term investments in these particular companies is going to ultimately be good for everyone. Now, it's patient capital, and sometimes it's hard to have patient capital when you have investor meetings. But one of the things we can try to champion, and one of the things we can do ourselves, is say we recognize that the Institute has a bigger mission. So when I talked at the very beginning about seeing how we see entrepreneurship as a tool for change, a positive tool for good, we need to champion that all organizations see themselves not just as instruments towards profitability, but as champions for good. And as a champion for good, then that will mean you're going to have to do things a little bit differently, and you may have to have a little bit of grace, and you may have to have a little bit of buffer. I get it. There's a balancing act there, right? But if you see your mission as being bigger and beyond, then hopefully that then gives you the space to build systems internally to allow that to play itself out. But I think we have to champion the notion of being bigger and beyond.
All right. And so that gives us the space to also address the other elephant in the room, right? So it's not just about opening up pathways or pushing our anchor partners to create those pathways, but we also have diverse businesses who have gotten access to these awesome opportunities, right? They've gotten a procurement contract or two or three, and now they are the familiar diverse business that the anchor partner might be comfortable with, or that this larger general contractor might be comfortable with, right? How do we push our diverse companies who have finally gotten their foot in the door and have this great position to also create opportunities for up and coming companies to not just hold on to those contracts all for themselves, but to share with other companies who want similar opportunities?
Yeah, it's about seeing yourself as a vehicle for the greater good, right? So, as I spoke earlier about what I thought was one of the unique elements of some of our more recent Ascend cohorts is that communal spirit, that willingness to work on contract proposals together. But I think it also is going to be, look, we are, it's a fascinating juggling act, right? Because the company may say, yeah, we're at 5 million, but we really need to get to 10 million, or we're at 10 million and we really need to get to 20 million. And once we do that, then we can do Y, right? But can you mentor along the way? Can you take some time to try to walk someone else through some of the fundamentals that they need in order to be competitive? Can you say when opportunities do arise that you now go back and hire some of those Ascend companies? So hopefully one of our companies now is going to be the next company that's at, put whatever magical number we think is what we want to see. And now they will need subcontractors, or now they will need to hire an in-house catering service. Will they come back and get one of our companies? They now have manufacturing companies and facilities not all over New York but all over the country, and those facilities need to have quality corporate cleaning companies. We have multiple Ascend cohorts that are in that space, that they're not just doing residential, they're doing commercial. So now that you have 20 different factories or 20 different office buildings in 20 different cities. You're in Philadelphia, you're in San Francisco, you're in Tokyo. You've done what we really hope all of our companies do. Can you now provide that commercial cleaning contract to one of our other companies? Because there's so many opportunities for synergies because we have a diverse set of companies. And so as our companies grow, can they then provide the opportunities for other companies? So it is not necessarily taking away from their growth capabilities. It's saying that there's all these other complementary things that can be done and that there's contracts for, and we're going to help pull you into those networks.
Wonderful. 5 to 10 years from now, where do you see the Institute? What kind of work will the Institute be doing? How would it have evolved and helped the local ecosystem to evolve?
Yeah, I hope we're doing a lot more of what we're currently doing. I don't know if I want a major evolution in the next 5 to 10 years. I want us to get better, and I want us to expand what we're doing. Because I feel like we have a fairly solid template now. We have team members who work on our students, and they're helping to grow our student base. And that may be our Hofstra students, but it may be students at Hempstead High, so on and so forth. We have folk who are dedicated to working on our faculty, and they're helping faculty both in integrating entrepreneurial thinking into their courses, but those faculty who are doing research, that they're commercializing their research. We have programs and projects with other nonprofits, and we're engaging in that work. And we have partnership, and we've developed and supported courses that are international. We're providing support for our students to go to South Africa, and they will hopefully then go to other countries. So we're looking at this at the student level, at the faculty level, at the community level, at the global level. I don't know where we will evolve from that, right? I mean, but what we do want to do is do it better. We want to expand our programs. We want to bring in more entrepreneurs. We want to see generational effects of people who were in our programs 20 years are now themselves committing to, or, in 10 years, I want one of my companies, multiple of my companies, to have done extremely well. And now I'm bringing them back and they're entrepreneurs in residence. And they're mentors for our programs. And so if I can get that in the next 10 years, I think that would make me as happy as possible. That the companies we've trained are now back helping train the next generation.
Wonderful. And individually, where do you see your impact? What do you hope your impact will be?
I had a student who was in our international entrepreneurship class. And she parlayed that into, she's going to grad school. She started her profession. She's doing some fascinating things. And she came by campus a couple of times, and I was somewhere not on campus. And she left me one of the best greeting cards I think I've ever seen. And she talked about the impact of that course. And then I'm not quite sure why, but as a present, she left me a box of Starbucks K-Cups. So I have in my office a box of 30 K-Cups. I have no clue why I have a box of 30 K-Cups. Maybe I said something in one of the courses about liking Starbucks. Maybe I used the third place example. I do like the third place example. Maybe she feels like as her professor is aging, I will need more caffeine. I don't know why. But it's those types of things. It's students that come back and share with you the transformative power of your course. In our other entrepreneurship course, one of my favorite stories, and again, I'm here to promote my students, so I wanted to promote G Taste Crepes in Huntington, New York. And so what happened there is one of our entrepreneurship students who came into the course and he said, I'm from Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, thus the name G Taste, and there's crepes that I can't find here that I want to be able to make. And he started a crepe business inside the Institute, and now that business is, again to all listeners, that business is G Taste Crepes in Huntington. Those are the types of things we want to do. We want to say we've planted seeds, and then we can look back and we can see how our students are doing awesome and wonderful things. And in some cases, it may be starting a crepe business in Huntington. It may actually be that I went on to be chief legal counsel, but I learned to think creatively and entrepreneurially while I was at Hofstra. Or someone started in our EAC and all they had is a concept. A decade removed now, they're employing 20 people. And now those 20 people are able to help grow their families. And then who knows if the kid of that family may go on to be the next elite entrepreneur. And there was that momentum that came from just having an idea, taking a 10-week EAC class that then led to my business, that led me to hire people, that allowed those people to have a livable wage, and allowed them to raise their family. And now we have the next great entrepreneur. Like, it's a long game for us, right? We want to invest in people now, and we want to see how great they become.
Awesome. And where can people find you?
They can find me at Hofstra University. No, you can find me, you can find us, hofstra.edu/entrepreneurship. That'll take you to the Institute's page. You can find me, I'm fairly accessible. You can email me. I'm at richard.hayes@hofstra.edu. You can find me on LinkedIn. I get LinkedIn notes all the time. I'm always happy to receive those. And I try my best to respond as timely as life will enable me to do. Yeah, those are probably the places. You can find me at the Institute. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please reach out to me. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email. Again, it's just my name, richard.hayes@hofstra.edu.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Hayes. We appreciate it, everyone. We hope that you enjoyed our first session of the podcast.
Wonderful. Support each and every company in each and every episode.